What's going on, everyone? Today we are going to wrap up the final ambient light for the DIY ambient lighting project, which is going to be the driver's side. Everything else is done, and I will have a link posted for the complete walk around and look in the dark once everything is done. But today we're going to take apart the front driver door panel and the other parts of the interior that need to come out to be able to tap into the football OEM LED for the ambient lighting and bring a ambient light to the door pocket. So there's a couple things that we need to take apart on the door. I'll kind of pause in between takes as I did on the last one, but just to show what we're working with again. It's once again T25 bolts that are going to be taken out of the reflector. And then there is one down here on the bottom part of the armrest, and then one up here in the upper part of the door handle. Once you have the bolts out, the tweeter also has to be removed. Everything kind of lifts up. And for the interior, we have to take apart the cover that is underneath the dash, which is just 4 pop clips that pop out and then it kind of slides out. Once that's out, you kind of get to the wires and all of the innards that we need to be able to tap into. As far as the other components that need to be removed on here is going to be in sequence weather seal. Then we pry the small part out right here, followed by this part that pops out, and then this sill part can also be needs to also be taken out so that the carpet can kind of bend backwards to be able to get to all of the wires, because essentially what we're going to end up doing is tapping into the wire and running it through the boot into the door so that it can function just like OEM ambient lighting. If you don't want to do that, you can save yourself some time by following the directions in the rear video that I posted, but it's of course going to be always on. It will never shut down, it will never dim, it'll just always be on. So take your pick and figure out whatever is best for you. So I'm going to start taking some things apart, and then we'll be back when everything is done. Okay, so just a quick reminder again of supplies that we used to get this project done. I had a lot of it from previous projects, but I did end up buying some connectors. So from left to right, some 24 gauge wire to be able to act as your leads from where you started to where you need to end. Some T-taps that make tapping into the circuit very easy. Some connectors to connect the LED to the lead wire. Some 3mm LED plastic holders. And then again, 3mm flat top pre-wired LEDs for the actual ambient light. And then we're also going to frost that a little bit with some sandpaper just for additional disbursement, and then an assortment of pry tools just so that you can get pop clips and all the things out that we need to take apart to get this taken care of. So I'm going to start by taking off this weather seal and see if I can do some of this one-handed. So weather seal is very easy, just find a part and pull, and then pull it completely off. Oh, and of course also don't forget your duck blanket to be able to protect the door, or blanket of your choice. If you have floor mats, this also has to come out. And now we're going to use the small pry tool to pry the covers in sequence of 1, 2, and 3. This larger cover down here, it also has some pop clips, so don't just pry, you won't get it out and you may break something. So I would recommend starting at the bottom and popping down here first, and then just work your way around the top. Just be careful for the faux wood, and because it is actually a sticker. It looks very real. So we have a Model 3 too, which I think is actually real. It's a little older, that's aged, but this is, if you pry too aggressively, it will end up damaging that vinyl sticker. So I'm going to see if we can get this taken care of. Yeah, I've got to work it a little bit because see, it's already kind of coming up here a little bit. And then once this is off, I'll come back and do the others. Cover number 1 is off. Just take your time, work it. Don't be aggressive. You don't want to break something, then have to spend money on replacement parts or have to live with damage forever. And I usually stack all these parts right here on the dash. It keeps them out of the way. Benefits of having a nice flat dash. Next, we're going to pry right here at the top. The clip sits here at the top. And then just pull up because it has a slide clip that slides into the third panel. Next, get one of your pry tools that has a set of teeth, and we're going to pry the clip right here. Let's just take a look and see. Where the right spot is. Okay, so it just pops out, and you can pull it out by hand. Just a standard pop clip. Okay, and then this panel right here, I would recommend starting here at the back. And it just pops it and away from where it's attached. And once all of the pop clips are out, then you are left with the exposed innards behind the cover. Okay, and then we want to take our same teeth pry tool, or pry tool with teeth, and pry the clip right here that holds in the carpet. Go. And this allows the carpet to be moved away once we have this last cover off. So this cover is held on by 4 pop clips. They look like that, and they just pop out one by one. Let me turn flash on since it's a bit dark, and I'll be back. Let there be some light. So after I looked into the cover under here, it is a little bit different compared to the passenger side. There's only 2 pop clips, and then there's a Torx screw, and that is going to be a T20. So take everything apart, take your pry tool with some teeth, and just get into the spot right here. It just takes gentle pressure. It's not an aggressive pop clip. Wiggle it out and then just pull it out with your fingers. Do the other one and then unscrew the Torx bit, and that cover should drop. Okay, so there's a couple of clips that hold it into the bottom of the dash. So just work your way. It's 3 of them, and then it'll drop. Spacing is a little bit tighter under here compared to the other side, but everything should be fine. What we're gonna end up working with is, of course, the wires that are here for the football ambient lighting. So what I would recommend is unplugging this. It's very easy, just push the clip down and pull back. And this can kind of get out of the way. Probably pull this out too if you need to, but I'm not going to. This lead is pretty long. And what we can do then is move the carpet out of the way just a little bit and fold it back a little bit, because what we're going to end up doing is running the wire through the harness exit point right there through the boot into the door. What we're going to do first is on the wire is cut back some of this felt tape. We will fix it up like what we did in the other video so that you have enough room to tap into the wires and get all of that ready. Okay, I had to turn the car around because it was just too dark. So we're going to take the door panel off. As I mentioned, it is this reflector clip. Mine is clearly a little loose because there was so much drama with this door panel with the service center. It's quite the cup of tea. And then the two Torx screws, bolts down there, T25. So you're just going to pry from the top down with a pry tool or a flathead screwdriver, that works best. And then take the door bolts apart. And then the other part is just to remove the tweeter. Start right here at the edge and put your pry tool in and just kind of wiggle up, because there is a clip right here at the top that it slides into, and you don't want to break that clip. That actually happened on that side from the service center, so they had to replace the whole tweeter cover, and that thing, of course, is not the cheapest. And it still has issues. I was looking online and it's $80 on eBay, so no thank you. So just take your time and work this out and then undo the bolts. And as with the rear, there's just pop clips that hold it in. You're gonna find yourself a spot and just pull away and then pop it away from you. Take care of all of that and then we'll be back. Okay, so we have all of our T25 screws removed and popped away the door panel from the actual door. And as with the rear, all that's left to do is you just pull up and the door panel will come off. There's lots of wires, so this just needs to rest on your blanket of choice. And what does help with resting is by undoing the emergency release, which is it just slides away. Let me see if I can do this with this on my. You pull up to unlatch it from its little slot. And once that's unlatched, you just rotate until you have your wire right there in the release and pull away. And this will be ready for reinstall later. So once you have that done, the door panel can kind of sit on the side. Just make sure you rest it on something that's not going to cause it to get scratched up. Now that we have the door panel apart, we're going to prep all of the wiring, get everything wrapped for its journey through the harness. That thing is quite the task. You have to be patient to be able to get everything through there without issue. What I did find helpful on the other side is to take both sides apart and kind of squeeze, but it may be necessary if you're having a hard time, if you don't have something to fish it out with, just to make a little bit of a slice in the kind of seam of the boot area to help you wrap that wire. I did end up having to do that on that other side because there was just no way. So just keep that in mind. Do yourself a favor and end up just unpopping the harness clips from their respective spaces and unplugging everything. It just makes it so much easier. It's only 3 plugs, the footwell or the puddle light, door switch and window switch controls, and everything else just kind of pops out. That way you can take the whole door panel and move it out of the way so it's actually out of the way. So what we're going to try on this side is to actually not take everything apart, because on the passenger side I ended up taking everything apart, and that included this whole harness piece with all the bolts. And then you also have to take the glass out, and you do that to be able to kind of get behind everything, because when I originally looked at it I thought that the speaker didn't have pass-through, but when I reviewed another video I did see that there's a hole in this when the speaker is out. So I'm going to try and take the speaker out and route everything appropriately, because what you end up doing once you have your wire through here is you drill a hole right here, just big enough for the wire to pass through, because of course it's going to be sitting right around here underneath the window switches for the ambient lighting. So I'm going to attempt that and see if that's a better solution. Otherwise, everything apart. Here we go. So I've stripped away some of that original felt tape. We'll get that all cleaned up and looking pretty again once we're all done. And then get your T-tap that we're going to tap into the wire with and get this going. So I did end up taking the speaker apart. It is very tight. It's very tight. I'm going to try and wiggle my arm in the best I can through here to be able to get maybe up here. So we'll see. I think I'll have enough room without having to take everything apart. It's not hard to take everything apart. It's just extra. So if I can avoid it, I would rather avoid it. So I will report back and see if that ends up needing to happen. Once you have the wires routed through the upper part of the T-tap, all you do is press with your needle nose to get that connection. Okay, so spend a little bit of time on doing a really nice felt tape wrap job. Your goal is to make this look like it is an extension and like it was meant to be there. And then what we're going to do next is route the wire through the boot, through the exit into the boot and into the door. My recommendation is to leave some of this wire, because on the other side when I wrap the entire thing you have to end up drilling this hole a lot bigger, and the goal is to have the hole be just the right size for the wire to pass through, and then the rest of it can be wrapped afterwards. So leave some of the wire exposed that can be wrapped once it's through the door. So I'm going to work on that and then I will be back. So the initial route's very easy. You just reach around. There's plenty of space back here to reach around and pass it through here, and then pull it through. And this is the thing that you will battle with. So just be ready. I'm going to work on this, and then once it's in the door, I'll be back. After a lot of sweat, this is finally through the rubber boot, with enough slack for both sides. So now we just have to wire everything together and drill the hole in the door to be able to route everything for its final spot, and then drill the final hole for the LED holder and the door panel. As I mentioned before, just make sure you test your connections before you go all the way through, so you don't do everything and then end up having to undo things to figure out where the issue is. So just connect your lead wires to your LED and see if you have a positive connection. And there we have it. We have power, we have light, so we are good to go with final steps. So unless you have extremely small arms, Getting to the upper options isn't really possible. So the best entry point ended up being this dead plastic rivet area. I just drilled a hole with a, let's see, 13/16 drill bit, which is just big enough with the felt tape to get through. So I'm going to finish with my felt treatment on the rest of the wire, and then we'll be able to go and drill the hole and do all the connections for the actual LED, and then reverse assemble everything. So we've got the rest of our felt treatment done, and I'm going to install the connector that is on the lead side. All you do is route your wires through, as I mentioned on the original one, and then take your needle nose and just push down. There's a little click tab once you have everything aligned that you just push and it'll click in place. And that's it. Very simple, very straightforward. So I'm going to route this to where it probably is going to end up wrapping around some of that OEM harness a bit, just for a little bit more of a seamless look. And getting the LED prepped, and then drilling the hole in the panel like we did last time for the rears. The routing of the wire is complete. As I mentioned, I just did a little bit of a wrap around the OEM harness. And then here is our LED, same treatment. And of course, I will be doing a little bit of that frosting effect with the sandpaper like I did on the back in just a bit. Just wanted to show the panel over here. So door panel, we took off the cover in the bottom, just like we did in the rear. It's where that middle armrest torque screw sits. It's right down there. I'm gonna end up drilling the hole for the LED right here in the middle, and that'll end up lighting up everything here very nicely. So same as last time. You can start with a 3/16, but may have to just go up to a 13/64 just to get enough of leeway or room for that LED holder to slide in. You don't want it to be too loose, but you also want to sit there and fight for 20 minutes to try and get it through a small hole. So just always start small, and if you need to go a little bigger, you can go bigger, just so that you have the proper fit. So I'm going to take care of that, and then we'll get everything installed. So we got our hole drilled for the LEDs to route through with the plastic holder. Now we're going to take our clear flat top LED and just give it a little bit of an additional diffusion by sanding it just ever so slightly on some sandpaper. This is my previous diffusion technique on the other ones and the rest of the car. So as I mentioned, don't do it too much, just enough to where it creates some permanent scratches on the plastic, essentially, so that you can frost it. Otherwise, if you do it too much, it ends up taking too much of the LED plastic off, and then it is recessed in the holder. So just do it enough to where you get a nice frost on the LED, and that way it'll just diffuse the light even a little bit better. So as an example, let's see if we can get this to focus. There we go. Okay, let's get this all put back together. And there you have it. Just work your LED holder into the hole. It'll be really nice and flush and very inconspicuous. You're not even gonna notice it. It's just gonna work. And then this is what the back end looks like. So now we can go ahead and assemble everything, starting with the speaker and putting everything else back together in reverse order of taking it apart, and make sure you connect everything as well. Don't want to end up having a non-functioning ambient light or a window switch not working or something like that. So just make sure you plug everything back in and put everything back in the spots that you took them out of when everything was disassembled originally. I'm going to start that process and we'll be back when all of that is wrapped up. Everything's back together, and here's the final result of the front door ambient light install. So very inconspicuous, can't see it while you're driving. It lights up everything very nicely. And again, this is going to function with the OEM footwell light, so when you drive it is going to dim to about 50%. It's a bit light outside because it's almost about 10 a.m. in the morning, but this still gives a good effect. I will take a video of everything together at night to kind of show what it ends up looking like, and it definitely does elevate everything. It should have been there. It should have been there. It shouldn't have been taken out. It should have been there from the beginning. So hope everybody finds this helpful, and any questions, just send me a message or post a comment.